In this video I'm going to show you my 35-day journey across Vietnam, 5,200 kilometers on the motorcycle, from the far north all the way to the southern coast. Hello and welcome to my channel. So the Vietnamese trip is over, at least for now. So I drove 5,213 kilometers from Hanoi to Saigon. It wasn't just the trip from the north to the south. I've seen so many places on the way. So let me share my experience from probably the best journey of my life. So I started the trip in Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. I was hanging around vlogging for a few days and then I rented a motorcycle. It was a rental store near to the old quarter. I rented the bike for 1 month and I paid $8.2 million. So I already know the price is high, but I couldn't find a cheaper one. I made a research, it took me 2 days. Maybe the research was not enough. Many of you Vietnamese people commented that this is way too much for renting a bike for 1 month. So if you know any cheaper ways, cheaper options, leave a comment for my future experience and for all the people who are willing to do the similar trip as I did. But the good thing about this deal is that I was renting it in Hanoi and I was able to return it in Saigon. I had to leave the deposit. It was either $1,000 or my passport. And of course I left my passport because I didn't have this much money at the time. My friend told me that this was irresponsible and I shouldn't have left my passport in some random store. But I did the research, the place seemed to be legit and it was all good in the end. Moreover, I did a copy of my passport and every time when I was checking in some hotels, the copy of the passport wasn't an issue at all. So the owner told me to change the oil every 500 kilometers. I found it strange, but yeah, maybe the oil quality is not so good, the engine was old. He also requested that I send him the photo from the mechanic store every 500 kilometers, otherwise I will pay a fine. And that was in the contract. There were a few things that, yeah, I think he was not 100% honest with me. First, he told me that the bike is from 2022, then in the papers I checked it was 2018. Small things, but you know, then I kept thinking, is it a good place or not? But I did a test drive and everything seemed to be okay. So I was planning a huge trip, the whole Vietnam. So first I decided to drive around Hanoi for 3 days. If something would happen, then I could still return the bike. I went to the outskirts of Hanoi, to the Lideco ghost town. And this place, it's insane. The video is published on my channel. So after 3 days in Hanoi and around the capital, the bike still seemed to be very good. So I decided to drive to Ha Giang city. I think the GPS was showing me something like 6.5 hours drive, but in the end it was more than 10. And to be honest, that road was probably one of the worst I've drove in Vietnam. It was super busy, a lot of cars and a lot of big trucks which are speeding like hell. There was a lot of dust and in the night I couldn't see nothing. And also, I didn't drive this long distances in Vietnam yet. I am an experienced driver. I drove motorcycle in several different countries. But Vietnamese roads are very demanding. It's definitely for the hardcore players. I started the trip in the second half of December and in the night it got really cold. And I decided to stay the whole next day in the city. I tried to prepare myself for the cold weather. I bought some gloves and extra clothes. The city itself is charming, surrounded by mountains and rivers and many different ethnic groups and also interesting food. The next day I started the Ha Giang Loop. This road is popular among foreigners, so there are police checkpoints. Within an hour I was checked twice by the police. They asked me to see my motorcycle license for Vietnam. And there are 2 types of international driving licenses. The second one is valid in Vietnam. I have it, so police let me go without any issues. So I started my journey. And the views and the atmosphere of the place are incredible. It's just beautiful. However, yeah, December was cold. Even though I was wearing many layers of clothes, those were not the special clothes for driving motorcycle in winter, so I was freezing. But still, it was very exciting. At the northernmost point of Vietnam, I entered a very local path. It was super steep and it was just for walking, not for driving. Unfortunately, there I felt. I didn't know what to do and I was scared. I couldn't pick up the bike by myself. But fortunately I found the local village. I knocked the door and the local man who lives there was willing to help me. And in return he didn't want any money. That moment was really touching and he's such a great person. I should have given the money to his children, but at this moment I was shocked. I didn't think about it. I only thought about it a few hours later when the emotions calmed down. His kindness meant a lot to me. Ha Giang Loop, in my opinion, it's not difficult. Roads aren't too steep, and for me it was easier than the road from Hanoi to Ha Giang. You just need to drive carefully, not too fast, and it's all good there. From the loop, I drove to one of the most beautiful waterfalls in Vietnam. I met a Vietnamese biker and we drove together for 2 hours. That was super fun. Then I drove to Ha Giang when I spent the Christmas. I brought a traditional Christmas soup all the way from Poland and I asked a restaurant to boil it for me. And they did! I wanted to find dumplings, but instead I added some local bread to the soup and it was very nice. I met some guys from Switzerland. And even though I don't drink, we went to a club. The Vietnamese hospitality is at the highest level. And it was difficult to explain to the tipsy locals that I couldn't drink with them. But fortunately they understood. And they kept buying me sodas. Ha Giang is a lovely place. I was there just relaxing for 2 days and gathering energy for the next part of my trip. It's a perfect city to chill. I would love to spend at least a week there, just taking walks by the river, drinking coffee and thinking about life. I met some girls there and we ate a dish made of pigeons and frogs. I have to say it wasn't my favorite, but it was still a fun experience. From there I drove to Hoa Binh. A long drive, probably more than 10 hours. But if I have a good coffee, I can probably drive more than 20. This place has probably the best hot springs I have ever been to. And the price was insanely low. The whole mountain area felt magical to me. Maybe because of the mist, little rain and some local bridges. But I felt like I was in another land. This place still keeps me curious and I really want to explore it more. From there I drove to Vinh City. The place had some surreal vibes. I met some friendly locals, even the soldiers on their duty told me where I could go party. After that I had my first and only problem with the motorcycle. The carburetor got dirty and the mechanic had to clean it. It was an easy fix because in Vietnam you can find mechanics everywhere, even in the middle of the mountains. The repair cost me 50k, which is about $2. Moreover, I had the insurance with my rental and the owner told me to pay the mechanic and he would reimburse me in Saigon. And he really did, which is amazing. I was still craving for hot springs, so I went to sleep in Japanese resort. The place was pretty expensive by Vietnamese standards, but it was worth it. I felt cold, so the reception staff sent someone to buy me a heater. They didn't speak much English, but one girl spoke Japanese. So a Polish man and a Vietnamese lady were speaking Japanese in Vietnam. After that I headed to Hue City. And the food there was amazing. I even found a chocolate croissant, which as European, I can confidently say was very authentic. Then I drove to Da Nang. It was New Year's Eve time and my birthday, so I was excited to celebrate in such a special place. Afterward, I spent 3 days working as a Grab driver there. I worked 10 hours a day, which is 30 in total, but I only earned around $6. However, it was an incredible experience and I really gained a new appreciation for the work of drivers in Vietnam. And if you haven't seen that video, this one is an absolute must watch. After Da Nang, I went to Hoi An, a place with a lot of history. The football finals were happening at that time, Vietnam versus Thailand. And the streets went completely nuts. The energy on that evening was just incredible. The next day I took a long drive through the mainland of Vietnam. Along the way I met some of the coolest dancers near a waterfall, and we performed a dance together. The quiet, less crowded local roads are definitely my favorite. I really appreciate those long hours of endless driving. Later that night I met a local farmer who was burning a field. We didn't need to speak, we just looked at each other, smiled and watched the beauty of the fire together. It was one of those moments when words weren't necessary. Just being in the present was enough. And those moments are the most precious when you're on a trip like that. In the mountains it was cold again and I wasn't prepared. On the way to Pleiku I caught a cold and then I was coughing for 3 weeks. So make sure to always wear a scarf while you're driving. Then I drove to the coastal town called Tuy Hoa. There I mostly rested and did skateboarding. The hotel was insanely cheap. On a super fancy street I was paying 150k dong per night and it was just great. There is also an old temple on the top of the mountain. Such a great spot. Another place where I just rested and I have really good memories. Next I went to Nha Trang, where I met Tu and we became great friends. We were goofing around and it was a super fun time with her. Good vibes. The city itself is beautiful, but it's actually one place in Vietnam I didn't like and I won't recommend. Not because of the Vietnamese, but because of the Russians. I'm far from stereotypes, but yeah, it is what it is. In just one night I experienced violent behavior and almost got into a fight, for literally no reason. Two different situations during one night that could have led to a physical fight, and no one knows what could have happened. Both of those incidents were caused by intoxicated Russians, and it's been a while since I've been put into such a stressful situation. So yeah, no comment on that. From there I took a drive to Dalat, a very different city from what I saw during the trip. The city has some European vibes, sometimes Korean, sometimes Japanese. In general, it's a crazy mix of architecture and unique attractions. It was a good place to change the perspective. And then I drove to Mui Ne. My friend warned me that this place is a police trap and they target foreigners. There is a highway in the middle of the city with a speed limit of 50 km per hour. Even though I was warned, I forgot about it and I was just driving. Suddenly in my mirror I saw the police chasing me and eventually they stopped me. They told me to drive after them and they took me to their police station. They said I was driving way too fast and this is a serious crime in Vietnam. Basically I was speeding, but I was only driving maybe 15 kilometers more over the limit and they didn't even use any device to measure the speed. They just said I was driving super fast. They started saying I might lose my Polish license, that they have to take my passport, blah blah blah. Of course, it was a game to scare me and to get me to bribe them. They wanted more, but I ended up paying them 500k. I didn't want to waste more time because I really wanted to see a sunset on the beach. There is a song called Relax in Mui Ne by Onra. I first heard it 17 years ago and I promised myself that one day I would visit this city. That day I did and I relaxed on the beach. And all the police bribery experience faded away. I skipped the Saigon for that time and I took a long drive. I made it from Mui Ne to My Tho. And the next day wasn't any shorter. I drove from My Tho to Mui Camao, the northernmost point of Vietnam. That was my official victory. I drove from the northernmost point to the southernmost point. That day I could proudly say I drove through the whole country. I shared my energy with the others and it was a very happy day for me. Afterwards, I went to the village in Mekong Delta where they produce rat meat. I came up with this idea of making a rat hamburger. And I succeed! The most unusual and unexpected moment was when the lady let me into her house to cook. She left me with her kids inside of their house. That was a true cultural shock. I was amazed by the hospitality, but I didn't believe it would actually happen until the very last moment. And from there I drove to Saigon where I returned my bike. They checked it and there was no issues. I got my passport back and I rented a scooter for my stay in Saigon. A scooter is much better for the traffic in Ho Chi Minh City than a motorcycle. So the bike trip was about 35 days long. Some days when I felt tired or overwhelmed, I just rested. And it is very important to take a rest. Vietnamese roads are very demanding. The traffic is very different from the Western countries, and that's something you need to be prepared for. I had many dangerous moments on the road, but I also enjoy adrenaline. I'm a good driver, I like challenges and those kind of roads were exciting for me. Immortal Polish warrior. But for sure, this kind of trip is not for beginners. You need experience, courage and be well prepared. And most importantly, don't drive fast. After returning the motorcycle, I still did a few hundred more kilometers on the scooter. But that was in Saigon and the surrounding areas. My entire Vietnam stay was almost 2 months long. And after that time I can just say this. I'm totally in love with the country. It went far beyond my expectations. I met so many friends during my journey. And all the people I met along the way were very welcoming, kind and helpful. They shared with me what they had even if they didn't have much. So many diverse, beautiful landscapes, unique and exceptional places, amazing food and super affordable prices. During all my time in Vietnam, I never felt in danger. I was never lonely because of the people. I really felt comfortable and welcomed. And that is very important when you do the long trips like this one. And my Vietnam videos were very well received. Vietnamese fans turned out to be super supportive in the comments, extra kind, and I guess we have a similar vibes. Both me and the Vietnamese people are easygoing, love to joke and experience life to the fullest. Thank you so much guys, it means really a lot to me. And I love you all. But my visa expired and I had to leave Vietnam for now. Time to put my grab jacket in the closet and wear a new one. Welcome to China! I really hope you will stay with me for my new adventures here in China. I'm going to have many new crazy stories here and you can trust me on this one. Because of my current fan base, I'll keep the Vietnamese subtitles for the Chinese series and for the all future videos. Not only Vietnamese subtitles, but also many more. I am really thinking to revisit Vietnam again and again, taking the north to south road, just choosing different locations along the way. Because as I said, that was probably my lifetime experience. Maybe this year, so stay tuned. Please leave your thoughts in the comments and if you have any questions, I'm very happy to answer you. Likes, comments and subscriptions are very welcome. And if you appreciate what I do, you can buy me a coffee, become my Patreon or donate any amount by PayPal. That will really help me to create more amazing content for you. Thank you so much for today and see you in the next video. Gamun.